What happens when you make abortion illegal? High numbers of children in care, high suicide rates, high cases of domestic violence against women and children, increase in anxiety and depression in women, higher rates of death in women from risky and extreme measures. When abortion is heavily banned or restricted, women from poor, rural, and marginalized communities suffer more than their whiter, rich counterparts. On January 22nd, 1973, the highest level of legal court in America, the Supreme Court, issued a 7-2 decision in favor of Jane Roe, stating that women in the United States had the fundamental right to choose whether to have an abortion without excessive government restrictions, striking down Texas's abortion ban as unconstitutional. Now, in 2022, according to a leaked document, a majority of U.S. Supreme Court judges plan to vote to overturn the landmark Roe v. Wade, which legalized abortion. The Supreme Court has been debating this for decades without anyone noticing. The record's revelation has provoked indignation among civilians in the United States whose physical rights are currently being challenged by the Supreme Court. Around the world, an estimated 8 to 11% of maternal deaths are caused by unsafe abortion. In May, the CDC released data showing that hundreds of women die in the United States each year from preventable complications related to pregnancy. Preventable maternal deaths will only increase if access to abortion is further restricted. I asked young people across Salford what they thought about Roe v. Wade, if they felt abortion should remain legal or illegal.
It's actually horrible. It's just said a miscarriage. Like, it could be by accident on purpose, but they still get arrested for it. It's just unfair.
Abortion should be illegal because you're technically murdering another person's life, and it shouldn't be legal because that's another human that probably could solve cancer. You never know.
I think it's really, really tricky when it comes to abortion. I think it's the female's choice. Do I think it should be illegal? No. Do I myself think I could have an abortion? No.
Every single day we make choices, right? You don't see someone making a choice in the streets and become affected by the choice they made. So why should you feel affected by a choice someone else makes about their own body? Why should that medical procedure not exist just because you don't like it?
Like, there could be a woman and a man not being able to financially support the child and not give the child the best quality of life, and they decide that an abortion will help them financially rather than obviously bringing a child into this world. So that could be a reason.
If manipulation of life is the problem, then why do we allow genetically modified crops to exist? Why are we doing stem cell mining? Why are we trying to clone people? Why are we mixing dog breeds? All of these things are normalized. Why do we mine insulin then? If you're really concerned about the life of cells, all of these things should be legal. But I think there's a deeper issue here than changing and manipulating life. I think it is to do purely with the control of a woman's body.
Abortion shouldn't be illegal, and from what I've heard with the laws happening in America, that's just a bunch of guys trying to take over women's bodies.
I don't think it should be illegal because you don't really know the circumstance of how they had that baby, because it could be like, I don't really want to say the word, but let's just say not consensual sex, and it might have got pregnant from that, and it shouldn't be anyone else's right but the person's own to if they want to keep that baby or not, because it might bring a bad memory for them.
I think it should be legal to do, but I do value life, so I would prefer if people wouldn't, but obviously it's their body, their choice, they can do what they like, so it's up to them.
If it was like if a guy was in this situation, I feel like he would have more stuff available to him than a woman, so I feel like it's like kind of not a double standard, if you get what I mean.
Margaret Atwood commented the Roe v. Wade, calling it a direct challenge to the Me Too movement. I also sat down with American politics expert and equality champion Zoe Gould. Can you explain what Roe v. Wade is?
Roe v. Wade is was a law passed by the Supreme Court that basically, at a fundamental level, gave women access and right to abortions. What a lot of people don't really understand is, obviously, because America has Roe v. Wade, which says women should be allowed to have abortions, that each of the states can then basically have their own interpretation of that. So each state will then decide what access to abortion looks like in their state. And we've seen it come up in a lot recently, where especially more Republican states with Republican legislature have been passing bills that will limit that access. But what they can't do is block it all together, because Roe v. Wade states that every woman should be able to have access.
Why is the law being overturned?
It really depends on what you read and who you listen to on the justifications for this. So if you ask Republicans, they will say they are not getting rid of the right of abortion. Absolutely not. It's not, what they are saying is that they want those decisions to be made at a state level, not a national level. And this is a really common Republican argument. So Republicans tend to be really focused on the power of the state. Decisions should be in the people's hands. They want less federal control. Federal is how they talk about kind of national things. They don't like federal government, big government, whatever you want to call it. They want the decision to be in the people's hands. They want the decision to be in the state hands, where they have more control. So what they're saying is they are not overturning the right to abortion, but by getting rid of Roe v. Wade, they are solely placing that power in the hands of individual states rather than at the federal level. Obviously, if you then talk to Democrats or, more left-wing people, they will say this is all about Republicans and the right wing trying to infringe on the rights of women. And this can be seen because it's actually, if you dig underneath it, not just an attack on Roe v. Wade. There's lots of other things happening at state level, like limiting access to family planning, limiting access to contraception, and lots of other things that would be seen as women's rights or, family rights being infringed on.
Do you think that religious belief is also possibly the reason why they're planning to overturn the law?
Yeah, fundamentally, yes. Obviously, not all Republicans are Christian, just as, there are lots of Democrats who are Christian, there are lots of people who have no political affiliation in America who are Christian, and there are lots of people who aren't Christian that are Republicans. So it's not a black and white line, but certainly stereotypically, Republicans tend to be white and tend to be Christians. And obviously, a lot of people who talk against the right for abortion say it's because of religious reasons. And that's why it should be blocked. Now, this is a really interesting argument because when they say it's for religious freedoms, they are talking about Christian religion. And, other religions have kind of differing views. But yes, that's certainly the line that gets put out there the most, that it's because of religious freedoms that they want to overturn abortion.
What do you think the after effects would be if they ban abortion?
So the thing is, they won't be able to ban abortion. It's just like prostitution and drugs and any law like that. What we see when this happens is that these things don't go away, they just move underground, which means they become more dangerous. So they won't be stopping abortions. What they will be doing is causing more women to die from abortions.
Would not overturning this law be considered a human right violation?
It's a really, really tricky one. So, especially for kind of liberal people, we would say yes, it's absolutely a human right violation. But technically, it's an infringement of women's rights, but it is an infringement of their human rights. It's really kind of dodgy ground. As a liberal, I would say yes, it is. But, you are not... And this is where Republicans are arguing. They aren't stopping abortion. They are putting it in the hands of state. And that's where the line is really, really tricky. And that's where lots of people are like, how do we push back on this? Because when you ask, they are simply getting rid of Roe v. Wade to put the decisions in the hands of states. States can then make those decisions, and states should be making those decisions on the backs of the people who elect their representatives. So, you know, it's a really kind of grey area.
But if it does get passed, what do you think this means for women?
It'll mean, I mean, it's already started. There's plenty of memes going around on the internet to say, if you really like camping, but your state doesn't allow camping and you want to go on a camping trip, ring me. I will come pick you up and I will take you camping. We will have a lovely time and we will never talk about our camping trip when we get back. And that's what we will see more of. It'll be women going to visit friends in another state. And I use women absolutely loosely in this state because obviously it's not just women who can carry babies, but, you know, people who are pregnant will be travelling to states where it is not illegal to visit friends. And they just might happen to have an abortion while they're there. States and legislative bodies are well aware of this. Some states, I can't remember if it's Texas or Florida, have already kind of put in a caveat to say, if you travel out of state for an abortion, you are still going to be breaking the law. So again, it will become underground.
Wouldn't this be a major setback for society?
Absolutely, yes. Again, Republicans are saying no because they're not getting rid of the right. They are just giving the right to the states to make these decisions. But we all know that they're doing this because at the states they think it will be easier to really clamp down on it. And if they don't outright ban it, they're going to make it so hard to get. I mean, states are already looking at bringing in laws that say abortions are legal after 6 weeks. Most women do not know that they are pregnant by that point. So, you know, they're going to really, really make it harder. States are already looking at bringing in laws that will get rid of the right to the abortion pill by post, which is something the FDA, the Federal Drugs Administration, is already saying is a legal, allowed way of having an abortion. And again, that's really going to be interesting because the FDA works at a federal level, national, and they're saying that they approve abortion pill by post. But if the states are then saying that that's not allowed, there's a clash there. What will happen with that? But yeah, when you boil it down to it, yeah, it's a setback. It's a setback for kind of women's rights. It's a setback for individual freedoms, which is really interesting because the American Constitution is all about individual freedom. But again, apparently that individual freedom only actually applies if you're a white man.
Do you think it's possible that they can arrest people who have miscarriages?
Absolutely. Already happening. If you cannot prove that it was a miscarriage, if somebody says, I don't think it was a miscarriage, I think it was abortion, and you cannot prove otherwise, then yep, people are already getting arrested.
Is it unusual for documents from the Supreme Court to be leaked?
Yes. Leaks happen. It's really hard to stop them. But it is unusual. For Supreme Court documents to be leaked. They are generally really tightly controlled. You know, that's absolutely somebody taking their kind of career and putting it on the line. Because if the leak gets traced back to them, they're done. No more job for them. I would think it is more likely that it was a deliberate leak, which is rare.
If it was deliberate, what do you think the reason was for it to be leaked?
I would assume it's because somebody categorically disagrees with this and wants to give the bodies like ACLU and that more of a heads up so that they can start preparing their arguments and getting their ducks in a row to be able to fight back against this, basically. Basically, they want to cause up a storm. What's really interesting about this and the decision to get rid of Roe v. Wade is actually the majority of Americans agree that abortion is a right and should not be gotten rid of. I'm sure I read somewhere if it's not single percentage figures, it's low double figures of Americans who actually think abortion is wrong altogether. Most Americans agree that there should be a right. There's a middle ground of Americans who think that right should be slightly more curtailed than it is, but most don't want to get rid of it, and most agree with Roe v. Wade.
Thank you so much, Zoe.
Not a problem.
Roe v. Wade is so much more than if you can and cannot have an abortion. Birth control and even condoms can be made illegal if Roe v. Wade is abolished. And whether you like it or not, some states are already planning to remove it, which will leave women without life-saving access to contraception. If a mother dies during pregnancy, the doctor will be held liable, even if it was a miscarriage. If a woman has a stillbirth or a miscarriage and survives, she is at risk of imprisonment and a criminal record. Is it really fair to blame someone who was so desperate to have a child and convict them of murder? Is this the action of a progressive society in the 21st century? I don't know about anyone else, but that does not strike me as being pro-life at all.